Change was in the air as the unwritten second chapter of my photographic life began in 2001. It was a new century and a new millennium. In photography, digital was replacing film. Video was in ascendancy, print in decline. I had departed from National Geographic. For the first time since 1970, my work was fully self-directed.
Welcome to the Crit House. This is the third in our four-part series with Sam Abell talking about his upcoming two-volume retrospective of his life's work. Today, we talk about the second volume, the time period after he left National Geographic. I hope you enjoy the discussion. So, Sam Abell, let's talk about Volume 2, if we could. The years after you've left National Geographic and you've moved on to self-assigned image works. First of all, I'm interested in how you assigned those projects to yourself. How did you come to them, and how did you end up working on the projects that you did?
Some of them were commissions. I was commissioned to photograph in Cuba, and I received a commission to work in Amazonia, in the Peruvian Amazon. Those are a couple of the chapters that are there. But more interesting, I think, to viewers and readers of the book will be the self-assigned. I've long photographed gardens that are not present. That is, they are implied or suggested gardens. And that's a lifelong project. I also took up the project of portraiture itself. And I was after a particular kind of portrait, and that was portraits of people in documentary settings, not studio, but people that I encountered who were emotionally and psychologically within themselves, neither happy nor sad, but pensive. And so that's a particular kind of portraiture. I photographed my home. I always have photographed my home, but I did it with increasing intensity. And I have photographed a parking garage for 20 years. And why that? Well, it's out this window right here. I see this parking garage, and it happens to sit at the right distance and at the right elevation for my aesthetic sensibility. I like looking at it. So I have looked at it studiously for 20 years.
Did you find a change in your creative process when you were on your own without that sort of specific assignment and deadline, or the same that you were when you were with Nat Geo?
Well, absent in the second half of my photographic life was the mandate to produce publishable pictures.
Right.
I honestly was working for myself. And what does that mean? I have a sensibility that leads to an ideal. I have an ideal photograph in my mind for myself. This is the constant. The constant is documentary photography. In a worthy documentary photograph, for me, the subject will be there. Let's say Hokkaido, the northernmost island of Japan. Well, I have an ideal about Hokkaido, and that ideal will be that it's snow-covered, that the sky is gray, that the picture is immersive, that is easy to enter for the viewer graphically, compellingly Japanese, distinctively Japanese. In this ideal documentary photography, the subject will be there, but so will I.
Yes.
I do like black and white. I do like gray. I do like graphically clean and involving, that is welcoming graphics, structured pictures. And Hokkaido, to take one example, has a structure, an architecture, and a geography that appeals to me. So in this ideal picture, the subject will be there, but so will I. And I guess minus from that equation is National Geographic. I no longer have to think about their sensibility. So I'm exclusively thinking about the subject that's in front of me and my own sensibility in relation to that. I'm still very concerned with making everything in the image count. Leah, in her essay, says that my photographs throughout my life speak the same language. And what she's talking about there is attention to detail, and I think leading to some kind of spiritual strength in the photographs. And if I'm able to do that in a more relaxed, less concentrated way, less concentrated compositions, well, I'll be glad about that. A career does have its own rigidity to it that independent work does not have. You're not bound by the same mandates and the same responsibilities as you are inside a career.
That piece that you were talking about is consistent throughout. You know, there's never in your imagery, there are not extraneous elements. Everything is clean, and there's always quiet, and there's always stillness, which I appreciate greatly because I look for that myself. Part of me always wonders as I get older, and you know, I'm in my 60s now, and I am slower and I'm creakier, and it's harder for me to do some things. Do you think that there's anything in your just, you know, as you get older that changes in your ability to do something that might affect your way of capturing images?
Well, the good thing for me, Jeff, is that I adopted when I was 15 the sort of the aesthetic philosophy, but also the physical stance of composing and waiting, you know, which is what my father taught me to do. Compose the picture, Sammy, and wait.
Yeah.
And that has aged very well along with me. I'm very patient, and I'm aware always of picture possibilities, what you would call picture possibilities. When I'm in front of those picture possibilities, I'm probably not moving. I'm probably doing what my dad encouraged me to do, which was compose the picture and wait. Well, waiting means not moving. Waiting means standing.
Yes. Yes.
And I took a photograph this year in January. That's the last photograph in volume 2. If the book was published today, the last photograph would be a photograph I made in Los Angeles during the week of fires. Well, no fire visible in this picture. What it is a woman praying. She's on a pier. The ocean is in the photograph. She rises head and shoulders above the horizon, as do her hands. And her hands are cupped at a kind of what seems to me to be like a Buddhist gesture of prayer, a beseeching, prayerful gesture of her hands. And she faces the sunrise, which is off camera. Well, it's a powerful photograph. It's so meaningful to me that it's the last photograph in the book. I'm not moving to make that picture. What I am is studious, I would say. I'm a student of the light, of the ocean, of the horizon, and of her relationship to all those things. And then her gesture.
Well, that is a great transition to what will be the next episode, where we talk about the art of your imagery and photography. So Sam, we've done two episodes with you so far. We're on to this. This is the third episode we've just completed, and in each one, we're going to have our photographers recommend a book. And so last week you recommended an RFK book that was really moving. What is your recommendation for our viewers this week?
My recommendation is the work and the book called Peter Beard, the work of Peter Beard. This is 50 years of portraits, and it begins with a portrait of Beard himself as a young man. This was a photographer like no other. He lived in Africa most of his adult life, but was a member of the jet set elite. When they came to Africa, they sought him out. And when he traveled, he worked on top fashion and styling jobs for world-class clients. He was much sought after as a person, as a character, and as a photographer. This is a book like no other, which the title page will tell you. This is it. Inscribed to Me by
Wow.
Peter Beard. It carries the following elements. One, an inscription to me.
Which says I can't read it from here. Read it for us.
Sam, all the best from Peter, parenthesis, Beard, like it would be anyone else. That's the funny part that he put his last name in parenthesis because that is his footprint. He pressed it into ink and then stepped on the title page, making that authentic impression, the inscription like no other. And this is an actual torn page off a contact sheet, not printed, but glued on after he ripped it out. And there are splotches and other insignias of paint. And that was his style. It was characteristic of all his work. A straight print by Peter Beard does not exist, in my estimation, because he doctored everything with notations, inscriptions, text of all kind, as well as paint.
And you have an example to show.
I do, yeah. Well, here is Beard himself with his daughter, and he's painted himself, painted his own face. But throughout the book, I'll just take a print here at random. There's a print from his scrapbook and Andy Warhol. And he's written something about Andy. But page after page recounts his life. It's a unique memoir, but it's also an example of stylistic truth in bookmaking. In other words, be yourself. That's his message, is on every page, is throw out the rules and make the book yours.
Well,
The cover is conservative, I would
yep.
say, and not descriptive of the inside. The description is that footprint. That gives you an idea of what's coming.
Well, in our bookmaking conversation, it's a great recommendation. And I
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for that and all of the conversations. And thank you all for watching The Crit House.